You know it's this. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowing like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look up better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit and I chip it again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the 5th part of What If Deku Meets Powerpuff Girls. Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of ChiWriters on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. It was 5 days before the sports festival started and of course the girls were getting as ready as can be. The whole event has been highly talked about and people were going all out. After all, UA's particular was the most well-regarded festival out of the other hero school sports festivals. That morning, the Blossom and Buttercup were taking a well-sought-out break when Nemuri came in with some very exciting news. Girls! I have some great news for you all. Nemuri, dressed in normal clothes, came in very excited. The girls for a quick second were on high alert for any trouble, but quickly relaxed at the woman's excited, albeit crazy form. What's going on, Ms. Nemuri? Blossom asked, if only to satiate her curiosity. Nemuri smiled as she presented them with a flyer. They took the flyer and what was written on it was indeed something to be excited over. Tomorrow, Musudafu was hosting a beach market/fair in celebration of the approaching sports festival. Vendors everywhere were to sell various kinds of things, special merch, street food, handmade goods, and many other things. No doubt it was going to a busy place with a lot of people coming to check it out. But what caught the girls' eyes was beach. They all said in unison. Nemuri nodded, yes girls, at the Dagoba Municipal Beach Park. They say that some selfless humanitarian cleaned it up, restoring it to its once beauty, and they decided to use as the fair location. But don't worry, they will make sure not to let it get polluted again. Alright. I can't wait to go to the beach again. Bubbles giddily exclaimed. There are prizes, foods and a whole lot of other cool stuff. Most importantly, it's a freaking beach. Buttercup matched her sister's energy, being one of the rare times. You know it's exciting. Honestly, this brings back some fond memo. Blossom mentally cursed herself at that thought. That sudden slip-up caused the atmosphere to change significantly. Nemuri, noticing the sudden change, wanted to inquire. Girls, what's the matter? What's with the sudden change in mood? It's just that, we used to love the beach back when we were home. Even when we were unfortunate to get sunburn, it was fun, but, Bubbles drawled. We just suddenly missed home, that's all. Blossom looked apologetic at causing it. Buttercup didn't say anything, but Nemuri could see her was nothing more than her suppressing her sadness with the feeling being homesick. Nemuri, with a sympathetic smile, walked over to sit with the girls. Girls, it's not wrong to miss home. I can understand that all your memories are back home, but you have each other. No matter what, you stick together. And like Nizu said, he will help you find a way home. It's just a little tricky. Besides, don't let the sadness take over your days. I think going to the fair tomorrow can reignite some old memories and you can make new ones along the way. Looking at them with soothing eyes, the girls mulled over the idea. They have been here for close to a year, and although they miss home, they can't continue to be sad for long. Sooner or later they will get home, but until then, they have a goals to obtain, one to be heroes here and the other, take down him. They also know that feeling down will not change anything but ruin their mood, so there is only one thing to do. Well, what do you say, girls? Nemuri asked hopefully. They looked at each other and knew their collective opinions once again. Blossom spoke. Well, I can speak for everyone when we agree. Let's have a beach day. Dagoba Municipal Beach Park. The next day around 12 o'clock noon, the girls arrived at the beach fair. The place was filled with tents and vendors, activity booths and whatnot. It was all too mesmerizing and filled with laughter and joy. It looked like half the city was at that fair. To mark the celebration of the day, everyone dressed up. Being summer was just around the corner, they all dressed accordingly. When the PPGs arrived, they were dressed for the season. Bubbles was wearing a light blue spaghetti-strap summer dress with sunflowers adorned on it, sandal-strap shoes and had her hair down. Buttercup was wearing white shorts, a dark green t-shirt, yellow sneakers and olive green framed sunglasses. Blossom was wearing a red off-shoulder top, reasoning it would get too hot, a tawny orange midi skirt, sandal straps, a wool cardigan sweater for later on and a sun hat. She also opted to let her hair down, with Bubbles making a few suggestions, with two small braids holding the hair back and tied with her ribbon. Midnight was in a navy blue romper, with red accents and gladiator sandals, paired with burgundy sunglasses and a matching purse, hair pulled back in a ponytail. The girls were in awe at the sights and they wasted no time to hit the fair. As soon as they got inside, Bubbles raced straight for the tents, browsing in awe at the products. One particular tent she stopped by had custom-made jewelry. "Hello, little lady. Interested in buying a UA charm bracelet?" The vendor chirped, "We have a special deal. Buy one, get 3 more at the additional price of 1. Bubbles squealed before taking out her bunny-themed purse, and taking out some cash. "Yes please," she exclaimed. After taking the money, the lady gave her a round mahogany box with the bracelets inside. "Thank you for the business. Come again," she said happily. Bubbles then ran towards her sisters and Midnight, who were browsing another tent. Look, look, look. I got us some UA-themed charm bracelets. Aren't they cool?" Bubbles remarked as she opened the box. Midnight touched that she bought one for her, happily took one and wore it there and then. "It's lovely dear, thank you." The others soon followed, thanking her as well. As they walked along, Buttercup rolled her eyes as she stuck her hands into her short pockets, not finding anything yet that caught her eyes. That is until she caught a certain scent in the air. Buttercup was entranced. "What smells so good?" Buttercup pointed out. Before Blossom could respond, Buttercup sped to the source of the delectable smell, with her nose as the leader. The others quickly followed the raven-haired girl, until they found her at a nice-looking food vendor's tent. "Wow! These are good." Buttercup was busy stuffing her face with 2 bags full of takoyaki. She retuned back to her group, who gave her a look. "What?" With a mouth full of her delights. They merely just burst out giggling at the way Buttercup looked right now. She didn't care, rolling her eyes, she continued to eat her food. As the day went on, the girls got to try many games and activities as well as crossed paths with certain people from school, and let's just some of them, they were not happy to see. They also managed to try other foods and buy certain items that included, but wasn't limited to, a Nizu plushie. Guess who bought that? A midnight-themed choker, some sports festival-themed shirts, a 13-puffer jacket, a limited edition trading cards of heroes, and many sticks of dango. The girls were having fun so much. And what's better was that they got to enjoy a little piece of their childhood memories, even if it was not in the same world. They were happy that they were still together, more so happy that they have a wonderful people looking after them. So, they were able to be carefree and joyful as they bought stuff from tents, played some games, and danced to live music. Soon, the girls had to leave for the day, as the sun was coming down and more people were coming for the nightly festivities. The girls wanted to do one more thing before they had to go, to which After Midnight heard, was more than happy to accept. As the golden sun rays danced over the light blue waters of the beach, the 4 ladies could not help but admire the sunset in all its beauty. The girls wanted to at least watch the sun fall, capturing it with digital pictures and mental ones, to always keep close to their hearts. Midnight left to buy 1 or 2 things, telling them the plan of meeting at the exit in 30 minutes, everyone agreed. A few minutes of silence passed, before someone spoke up. "Hey guys. What do you think him is doing right now?" Bubbles asked blankly. It should have racked some fear, but after the day they had, they were just too exhausted. At the moment, he could be plotting any stupid plan against us Bubs. Buttercup said with a shrug. Not so sure Bubbles. Blossom gave her own reply. Another moment of silence came, before Bubbles asked another question. Are you guys nervous about the sports festival? Turning her head to look at their faces. Honestly Bubbles, the event is not what I am worried about. More about what comes after. Blossom answers blankly. Buttercup playfully scoffs, you always seem to think 5 steps into the future, huh Red? Shrugging with a smirk. That's why I'm the leader. We know. You never stop letting us know that. Giving an eye roll. Followed by another round of laughter, till it quickly died down. But seriously Bubbles, we won't really know what to expect at the sports festival, the events, or its outcomes. Blossom honestly said. Yeah trust me, I tried getting it out Ms. Nemuri. Buttercup said it as if it's something to be proud of. Buttercup. The other said in unison. For which Buttercup just laughed at their faces. Oh what? I just wanted to know if there was any fighting in it. They then joined in the laughter again. Oh well, I just wished we knew what to expect that day. Bubbles said not so glumly but with a thoughtful look. We could always travel forward in TI-. Nope. Bubbles wasted no time in shutting down that idea. Besides, we're the Powerpuff Girls. Expecting the unexpected is what we do, and I don't think it will end anytime soon girls. Blossom said with a fond smile. Of course. Bubbles sighed. It comes with the job. Ugh. Okay ladies, I think this whole share your feelings session has been swell and dandy but I want to hit the shower as soon as possible. So let's haul ass. Buttercup proposed, standing up from the sand. Blossom groaned. Fine Buttercup. We might all need a shower. But can't you say it without the sailor's mouth? Crossing her arms under her chest. Buttercup shrugged. Hey I'm Buttercup, it comes with the package. She started walking, with 2 sisters behind her. Give it up Blossom. She will always be our Buttercup, for better or mainly worse. That made Blossom smile as she walked hand in hand with her little sister back to the meet-up point. By the time they left, they were given memories that would follow them forever. It was the morning of the festival and if the fireworks weren't already a dead giveaway, then you had to open your ears to the excited people making their through festival fare outside in order to reach the stadium where the games would be held. Many people were wondering who were going to shine at this year's festival. Some people were talking about the 3rd years, seeing as this would be the final moments to show what they were made of. But majority were giving their votes on Class 1A. The class has been on everybody's lips, ever since their close encounter with the villain attack at USJ and surviving it. Everybody has been readily wondering what could these class of powerful youngsters bring to this year's festival. Even heroes of all types and ranks are keeping an eye out for potential sidekicks at this sports festival. Quite a large turnout it seems. Empty Lady said between bites of her free meal. You can't be surprised at how everyone is excited for the festival. Death Arm said. No. But more about how we are placed as security for this, instead of being inside. Empty Lady grumbled. Quit whining. After what happened at USJ, many other pro heroes are being called for guard duty too. Kamui Woods shot back. Oh like you are so happy to be here too, instead of inside as well. Empty Lady argued. In the stadium, each class was placed in their own special rooms, as a means change and prepare for the upcoming battles. Oh man I really wanted to wear my costume, Mina complained as the whole class was in their designated waiting room. Everyone was wearing the standard UA gym uniform for the festival. It's to keep things fair, Mina, Momo reminded her pink classmate. The other classes don't have costumes, so gym uniforms level the playing field, so to speak. Not counting each individual's advantage from their quirk. Geez. I wonder what the first round is gonna be this year. Kaminari grumbled aloud as he paced the room, hating the suspense. The anticipation of not knowing is the worst. It doesn't matter what comes. We must face down whatever the organizers have set up to challenge us. Tokoyami replied with his eyes closed and arms crossed. He's right, we have to show that we can handle whatever comes our way like real heroes. Shoji agreed with Tokoyami as he sat at one of the tables. The girls were casually sitting down. Bubbles was busy chatting with Koda, while Buttercup, Izuku, Ida and Uraraka were talking about whatever. They were all brought to a momentary pause when the door opened. Hey everyone, it's time we get going. We'll be entering the stadium soon. Blossom entered through the door, bringing everybody's attention to her announcement. One by one the class stood up and prepared to head out to the field. It was time to prove their worth as future heroes. The girls were excited to get out there, but were stopped in their tracks. Todoroki approached Izuku, but the girls seemed to feel his gaze on them as well. Midoriya. The red and white-haired teen spoke up. Izuku turned to look at his classmate while everyone else watched the scene that was about to occur. What's up, Todoroki? Izuku questioned as he looked at the ice and fire user. He never really got around to talking to him, maybe because the guy was seen as a loner and didn't really hang out with any of his classmates. As it stands at the moment, I know I will beat you, whether you have All Might by your side or your little fan club behind you, backing you up. His gaze momentarily lands on the two girls behind him as he said that last statement, for which the said fan club were not amused to hear it. I don't care what I saw at the USJ attack, I know I am made to win and you can just give up now. He bluntly stated, making everyone in the room pause at the tense atmosphere that. Izuku was momentarily taken aback by those words. Bakugou furrowed at the perceived slight and looked half a second away from yelling at Todoroki. Hey, hey, hey. Why are you trying to pick a fight now of all times? We're about to begin the festival. Kirishima tried to ease the tension that was building in the room. We're not here to make friends, but to win and show our best before the pros, and if none of you are going to take this seriously, then I advise that you all back out of the competition now, then make a fool of yourselves out there. Todoroki's voice rose, emphasizing his point across the room. Bubbles was a little taken aback by her classmate's own declaration of war. Blossom, at the door, only narrowed her eyes at the boy's threat, while Buttercup was having none of it. She was marching up to the guys, about to give him a piece of her mind. Look here, candy cane boy. If it's dash, until she was held back by a firm hand on her shoulder. She turned to see whose hand it belonged to, and it was Izuku. Izuku took back his hand and with a determined look, spoke up. I welcome the competition, Todoroki. Izuku exhaled, not losing his determined look. But just remember what you said before about underestimating your opponent. For a second, you could see the teen's eyes twitch. We are facing off with all the other courses, aiming for the top with everything they got, but don't count this class out so soon. The tension eased down. It may not have completely disappeared, but Izuku's little words of encouragement helped give some people the calm and confidence they needed. Bakugou just tisked at the green boy, deducing it was nothing more than some weak-ass way of boosting his own self. Pathetic. That was so manly, Midoriya. Kirishima fist-pumped excitedly. There was a wide smile on the redhead's face. Todoroki paid no more mind to the teen in front of him. As he left through the door, he gave a short but cold glare at the redhead, which was totally reciprocated by her own chilling glare. Izuku took a deep breath in and out, as if letting out all the fear and confidence he had at that moment of whatever it was. But before he could look back and see the reactions of the three girls. Deku, come on, before we are late. Pulling the frazzled boy along and out the door. Blossom seeing the two leaving, she was left behind with her two sisters, walking over to gauge their moods. That guy has some issues. Bubbles sighed. I don't care if that wannabe candy cane has issues. I am just about ready to clobber our so-called classmates. Buttercup grumbled. Easy there, Buttercup. I understand how you feel and dash. And you're going to say that we shouldn't rock any boats or cause too much attention onto us and dash, now Blossom's turn to interrupt her. If you gave me a chance to finish I was going to say, and we should show him that we are serious. Let's show all of them that we are heroes and that is not going to change, neither in Townsville nor here. Right girls? Her eyes showed a level of determination and strength. The two other sisters looked at each other with their determined smiles and stared back at their leader. Right. Good. 'Cause I have a little plan in stored. Festival Stadium. Present Mike shouted from the announcer's booth, causing the crowd to cheer loudly. Make some noise, sports fans. Get those cameras prepped, media hordes. This year we're bringing you some of the hottest performances in sports festival history, guaranteed. I've only got one question before we start this show. Are you ready? Let me hear you make some noise as our students make their way to the big stage. It's not an exaggeration to say that everyone and their mums were watching through the screen, anticipating the walkout of the individual classes. Why am I even here? Aizawa grumbled from his seat next to Present Mike. He was fully healed now, thanks to the early healing he'd gotten from Recovery Girl and his student Buttercup, but Recovery Girl was pissed at his weak as gratitude and signed him up to be Present Mike's co-host. Time to welcome our students to the field. Mike announced loudly as the first years began to emerge from the tunnel and onto the field. Let's introduce our first group, who are no strangers to the spotlight. You know them for withstanding a villain attack. The dazzling students lighting up your TVs with solid gold skills. The hero course of Class 1A. The crowd exploded into cheers as Class 1A appeared. Whoa, there sure are many people here. Izuku said, trying and failing not to sound so nervous. I hope we're still able to give our best performance even though all these eyes are watching us. I suppose it's just another aspect of being a hero we all have to get used to. Ida spoke, assessing the situation. Bubbles was busy thinking to herself in the moment. What's up, Bubs? Are you nervous in front of the crowd? Buttercup asked teasingly, as she nudged her. Bubbles shook her head. No, it's just, Present Mike made a mistake. Bakugou was not at the USJ attack, so why is he getting the spotlight as well? She said so innocently, but that made Buttercup laugh out loud. Kirishima was one of the few who heard that and so did Bakugou. Hey man, you know she didn't mean it to be offensive, right? Trying to diffuse any sign of his emerging temper. Much to his relief and shock, Bakugou did not react, merely just gave a sinister smile as he marched on. Who cares what that weak extra thinks, this is where I will show everyone I came to win. Next up, though they may not have had a lot of screen time. But they are also here to show their stuff. Welcome Class 1B everyone. Class 1B marched into the arena, though they did not get a wow introduction, they were still holding their heads high. Next up we have the General Studies classes 1C, 1D, and 1E. Watch out hero course. Some of them are aiming to take your place in one of those 40 seats. Present Mike hyped up the crowd while warning the hero course of their competition. Izuku and the others briefly noticed a few of the Gen Ed students who confronted them a while back. Some of our hero course students could benefit from following their example on grades. Aizawa spoke dully and a few of the hero course students from both classes flinched slightly. Now we have our talented students that produce the gear that gets things done. Support course classes 1F, 1G, and 1H. Mike shouted as the support course students, some of them decked out in their own self-made gear, walked onto the field. And last, but certainly not least, the ones who learn the ins and outs of our economy and how to market the heroes and their causes. Business course classes 1I, 1J, and 1K. Present Mike declared loudly as the crowd's energy kept building. The business course students smiled and chuckled at the pro's statements. He wasn't wrong though. Any pro that hoped to go independent in the mainstream of the hero industry needed to have good marketing and representation. What are we, some sort extras to make the hero students look better? A familiar brunette girl from the General Studies course mentioned just loud enough for Izuku and some of the others in 1A to catch. With all of the first years gathered in the middle of the field, a loud crack caught their attention. From up on the stage appeared Midnight in all her voluptuous glory. "It's time for the opening speech," Midnight announced into the microphone with a grin. She gave a quick search to see her 3 kids were in the group. Almost every man in the audience grinned or smiled at the appealing pro, while her girls were ready to smack the said males over their heads. "Please welcome this year's chief umpire for the first year tournament, the R-rated hero, Midnight." Present Mike presented to the cheers of the crowd, especially the male section. "What about the principal?" one of the attendees asked another. "He's always at the third-year stage, every year." The guy next to him answered back, not taking his eyes off Midnight. "The other stadiums don't know what they're missing. Someone might want to talk to Miss Midnight about what she's wearing," Kirishima mentioned with his cheeks slightly red. Midnight's costume was basically a modified DMNTRX outfit after all. "Yeah, that costume should definitely come with a warning label." Kaminari agreed even though he hadn't taken his eyes off the pro since she appeared. Teenage hormones were a powerful thing. "Is that really appropriate apparel for a high school sports festival?" Tokoyami questioned as Midnight prepared to start the festival properly. He was glad that his physiology allowed him to hide his own blushing at their teacher. "Silence, everyone!" Midnight, with a stern face yelled, whipping the air to get everyone's attention. It then took on a subtle proud expression. "For the student pledge, we have Blossom Kayama of Class 1A. Every eye turned to the long-haired teenager. Blossom had a feeling that this was probably because she had scored the highest during the hero course entrance exam. She quickly turned to spot her sisters, where one gave an encouraging smile while the other smirked, mouthed out, "Nerd, safe to say, what else could she have expected?" As she headed over to the microphone, Midnight gave her a gentle nod of support and an encouraging smile of her own. She looked over the crowd, and begun. "I am honored to stand before all of you, representing not just my class but all my fellow first-year students." That got some mixed cheers and reactions from the audience as some pro-heroes seemed to recognize her. I would like to take the opportunity to agree with Present Mike. That indeed we are all here to do our best, but it doesn't mean that I or any of my classmates will back down so easily. We earned our spots in the entrance exam, and if you want to take them from us, then we accept the challenge. I look forward to the competition and I advise you all to do your best. With that, Blossom gave a short bow, as she walked off the stage to the sound of cheers and applause. But some were not looking into applauding for a Class 1A hero fake. Midnight just smiled at the girl's words, knowing full well that neither her or her sisters were going to disappoint this day. She was then squealing and hugging herself from the youthful passion, as she called it. What a pledge! No one can say that she is not going to show any less than what she announced, folks. Present Mike blasted out through the speakers. With that pledge of war, we now know that things are about to get fired up at this year's sports festival. Must you act so dramatic? And get your foot off the desk. Aizawa admonished Mike, whose boot was literally on the desk as the blonde man nearly jumped on top of the furniture in his excitement. Time to discover the first game of the sports festival. Midnight cried out as a display lit up behind her and began spinning through options. This is when our students start experiencing the pain for the first time. This year's first event is. Everyone waited in bated breath, as they awaited the first challenge of the festival. An obstacle race. Midnight cracked her WHP while giving a somewhat sadistic smile. Here we go. Present Mike yelled loudly while all the students looked on at their first event. Before we begin, we'll give out the rules for this event. Midnight informed the students with her microphone. The course will be one full lap around this stadium. The total length is 4 kilometers. I don't want to restrain anyone, at least in this game. Midnight gave a sadistic look as she licked her lips. You have to run the entire course. Going out of bounds by leaving the track is strictly prohibited. You must face each obstacle in order or you'll be deemed as having gone out of bounds and be disqualified. The pro cracked her WHP towards the first years. You are free to do whatever your heart's desires. Now, then, take your places, everyone. Midnight yelled, making the crowd cheer as the first event was about to begin. The students began to move to the tunnel that marked the starting line. This is it, my showcase. I have to show the world who I am. Izuku thought to himself as he was getting himself psyched. Today, I show the world that I am here. The countdown lights turned on, 2 red lights and 1 green waiting to start the race. Are you ready? The obstacle race is about to begin. Mike hollered through the speakers. The first red light went out on the countdown. The obstacle race was a go. Start. Both Midnight and Mike yelled at the same time. In an instant, every student rushed forward. Okay. Let's check out the action. Are you ready to give commentary, Eraser? Present Mike asked Aizawa with his normal, energetic personality. I'm still not sure why I have to be up here in the first place. Aizawa drawled out. We'll get started right away, Eraser. What should the crowd pay attention to in the first few minutes of the race? Mike continued as if Aizawa hadn't just complained about having to be co-announcer. The doorway, Aizawa commented as he watched all of the first years rush into the narrow tunnel. Inside the tunnel, yelling and shouting began as the participants were squeezed together. Trying to run through the tunnel at the same time was proving impossible. It was far too narrow for all of them to pass through at once, and many realized that it had been designed this way on purpose. This was clearly a test of ingenuity to see how they'd get through and take a lead in the race. A sudden drop in temperature made the majority of the students start shivering. The floor was covered in a sheet of ice and most of the first year's shoes froze over, sticking them in place. Several dozen calls of alarm or outright accusations of cheating rang out as Todoroki ran past the immobilized students. Sorry, but I have to win this race. Todoroki stated while leaving a trail of ice right behind him. It would make it hard for those that freed themselves to walk, much less run, to try and catch up. You think you can get ahead of me so easily, you icy hot BSTRD? Bakugou roared as he was already in the air with his explosions firing to keep him airborne. Nice try, Todoroki. Kirishima yelled out as he leapt forward in a long jump to clear the spreading ice before it could entrap him. That was naive, Todoroki. Momo commented as she produced a long pole from her palm and used it to vault herself over the ice trap. Your ice can't stop my sparkle. Aoyama stated while firing his laser and being carried through the air by the force his unique energy generated. Hey, that was close. Mina shouted as her special shoes secreted her acid onto the ice. The liquid dissolved the ice and made small, clear patches on the track where Mina stepped. It seemed as though many students have found their way through the hybrid quirk user's trap, some being from the other classes. More people dodged that than I expected. Especially those from other classes. Todoroki noted as he continued to run. The hybrid quirk user refocused on the track ahead of him before blinking in shock. A large metallic fist slammed into the ground, of where Todoroki, a few moments was standing, before he quickly dodged the surprise attack. Target acquired. The mechanical voices of dozens and dozens of robots rang out as a horde of one-pointers from the entrance exam tore through the walls that had been set up to outline the track. With a rumble and huge plumes of dirt and dust, 8 zero-pointers rose from their hiding places among the forests surrounding the track. In no time at all the entire track was blocked off by a wall of robots. Are those the robots from the entrance exam? Izuku nervously looked at the same exact robots that he had a trouble beating before. Ooh, enemies have shown up out of nowhere. We're in for a treat here. It's a test of strength and cunning, the Robo Inferno. Present Mike announced while the robots locked onto the students. Are those the 0-point villains from the practical test? Kaminari skidded to a halt, along with the majority of the first years. The hero course had to fight those? Someone questioned from the crowd of students. This is what they meant by obstacles. Another student demanded as she stared up at the towering robots. There's too many. We can't get through. A different student cried out at what they perceived to be an impassable barrier. So, this is what the other students faced in their entrance exams? Todoroki commented as he sized up the massive machines. Where did the school even get the funding for these things? Momo wondered as she looked at all the robots. As the robot made the first move to attack, frost started to accumulate in Todoroki's right hand. They obviously went through a lot of trouble, but I wish they'd have prepared something a little more difficult, and placing it down, spread across the ground. Especially since my dear old dad is watching. He stated with a mocking tone at the end. The ground froze in a large area surrounding Todoroki and he swiped his right arm upwards, sending a blast of ice and frost at 3 of the 0-pointers just as the massive machines began their attack. The robots stood no chance as the ice encased their metal bodies and they froze over. With an exhale of frosted breath he ran between the frozen behemoth's legs as he chased after Izuku. Look, he stopped them. A student called out. We can get through between the legs. Another claimed loudly. Careful now if I were you, Todoroki warned the group at large. I froze them while they were off balance. He informed in a monotone as the 3 0-pointers started to tilt over. The majority of the students ran backwards to clear the area as the frozen giants slammed into the ground. On purpose, his final words to the rest of the students went unheard in the racket as he rushed ahead. That's Todoroki from Class 1A pulling ahead to an early lead with a devastating display. Amazing. This what we came here to see, listeners. Mike roared as he stood up from his seat at another display of incredible quirk use from the first-year students. His attack was both offensive and defensive. A surprisingly rational and strategic move to ensure his own progress. Aizawa commented as he watched Todoroki take the lead. No wonder he was let in through recommendation. He's never even fought those robots before. Extinguished by his chart-topping moves. Mike was almost hopping up and down as he commentated. From the dust settling, more robots emerged, making their way over to the students. Many were still frozen in fear, most being that they never even faced anything like this and were completely at a loss to what to do. They slowly approached Izuku, red lights flashing as Izuku was contemplating what to do. I have to get past these robots, while looking out for other obstacles. Thinking about that, he suddenly had a flashback of when he faced one of those robots in the entrance exams, where he petrified in place by the fear he had. I could show what I can do now, but it's too soon to demonstrate. Besides, the amount I got is not nearly as enough. Time was running out and Izuku was at a loss. What do I do? One of the pointer robots went on the offense, lifting their mechanical arm in the air. They were about to attack the green-haired teen. Just when Izuku was about to take his own offensive strike, the robot's arm froze mid-air. What? Izuku looked confused at the turn of events, before the said robot, now covered in a pink glow, hovered over the ground and into the air. Its body was now being crumpled, as if it was a can being crushed in a garbage truck, falling down to the ground, in pieces. Everyone wondered what happened, until 3 figures walked along the path. Not so glad to be fighting those things again. An annoyed female called, walking over with her glowing hands out. I still find them better than dealing with Dynamo. A cheery but equally serious voice came out as well. Whatever you whiners. It just means more target practice for me. Another voice said, slamming fist into her hand. Blossom, Buttercup and Bubbles were standing beside each other, unafraid and looking determined. Whoa, audience. It seems that we might see more action just yet. Mike announced, sounding just as curious at what was to happen. Okay, girls. Plan, Delta fireworks. At that order, many were confused at what the redhead was talking about. They went into formation. All right. Time to really show them. Buttercup exclaimed with a sly smirk, getting into position. I love the firework plan. Let's go. Bubbles' whole body seemed to be covered in a blue aura that seemed to be vibrating all around her. Hands extended apart, she manifested small bubble-like spheres around herself. "Go Buttercup!" she hollered, launching all her bubble spheres into the sky. People wondered what she doing, till a green blur appeared in the air, in the path of where the round projectiles were launched. "Batter up, red!" She sent a supercharged ionic punch that hit all the ball now covered in green energy, right at Blossom. Despite everyone telling her to get out of the way, she ignored the voices, concentrating on her part. Both her hands lit up with a glow of pink, initially stopping the super-fast spheres on the spot, before pulling them in between her palms, causing these over a dozen bubbles to merge in the middle of her hands. She closed her eyes, taking a deep breath, she focused on her task. The orb that was now basically the size of a football, changed from a bright pink, into a multicolored ball of energy. She opened her eyes, locked on to her target, fire. She released the orb, launched it with considerable strength. The energy ball was shot into the air above the pointer robots, leaving many people to think she missed. Until the orb broke apart, sending multicolored beams of light raining down onto the robots, destroying a couple of the zero-pointers and some of the numbered ones. What was left after the dust and smoke settled, were some piles of broken robot parts and gawked expressions on everyone's faces. For a few moments, everyone was quiet, not knowing what happened or what to say, until... "Oh my plus ultra. Folks, we just witnessed something wild." Mike shouted in shock, almost using his quirk. It looks as though the three girls from Class 1A, Blossom, Buttercup and Bubbles Kayama have banded together, early in the race to combine their powers to display a very unique and potent combo move right before our eyes. Everyone in the audience was taken aback by the display of power and teamwork by the three girls. Not really surprising, given their quirk is initially called Chemical X. That got a lot of muttering and confusion from the audience, with a groan. Aizawa reluctantly continued, "Not much I can say about their powers early in the competition. For that, you will all have to watch the whole race carefully." He dryly said, left dealing with an intrigued childish coworker announcer and a growing headache. "Hey! Someone's trapped underneath." That made most whirl their heads towards the girls, as if they're to blame them for the cause of that, which was so not true. As if to prove them wrong, there from the ice-covered robot wreckage, Kirishima and Tetsu emerged from the said wreckage with their quirks activated. "I'm alive. Todoroki, that BTRD. That class A really is filled with BTRDs." Both emerging from the wreckage, unscathed and looking pissed. "If it hadn't been me, someone would have died," they both said in unison, then looking at each other, in shock and annoyance to find that they have almost the same quirks. While others were still reeling from the combo attack, the two boys ran onwards, seemingly arguing with each other, without knowing what had happened. "Race ya, slow pokes!" Buttercup cried, racing forward, leaving her sisters behind. "Hey! Not fair!" Bubbles shouted after her sister, breaking into a run. Blossom wanted to roll her eyes at them but realized she couldn't waste any more time and just ran into the path of the remaining robot pointers. Everyone snapped out of it. Someone telling the others that they shouldn't be fazed by those girls' tricks and they should do what they did and work together, even for a short time to get through the robots. At that, explosions were sent off, with bakugou taking to the skies, flying over one zero-pointer robot. "DMN that Todoroki. DMN those extras. I won't let them beat me." That short declaration of his goal, followed by Shiro and Tokoyami on his tail, copying his idea of going over the pointer robots with their quirks. Announcer's booth. As expected, most of the group that has gone ahead are from Class A. Snipe noted. The other students aren't bad either. The ones from General Studies, who have a chance to get into the hero course, especially. Toshinori mentioned as he watched the race. But there's a clear difference in training. The hero courses aren't given any time to just stand around. Aizawa stated as the students of Class 1A and Class 1B tore apart any robot that stood in their way. Momo created a full-sized, functional cannon and blasted a zero-pointer's head into scrap with a well-placed shot. Mina dissolved the head of any robot that got near her. Kaminari simply had to touch them and release his quirk for a second or two to fry the robots. Ida could simply kick most of them aside without much trouble. Kyuka could destroy 2 robots at the same time with her jacks and the immense vibrations they sent into the robots. Bubbles saw fit to dodge and avoid the robots, not wanting to waste time. Buttercup took the opportunity to knock out any robot that was in her way with her fists, though that caused her to be a bit distracted. Blossom simply used her ice breath to either freeze her robot opponents or to simply make ice ramps, essentially using them for momentum to jump over the robots. She knew enough about those bots to know they wouldn't exactly follow her but deal with the others. Izuku, with his quick wit and strength, picked a piece of the destroyed robot armor and used it as a shield as well as a tool to destroy the robots, effectively holding his own in the race. It is clearer to see that each of them are not taking this as lightly as they each did in the entrance exams. But I will say that there are some who, despite all they went through, view this as nothing. Snipe said calculative. As the challengers were racing through explosions and chaos, Mick's booming voice came through the speakers. For those of you who thought that the last obstacle was easy, let's see how you feel about the next one. Present Mike held his right hand to his head with a wide grin on his face. The next obstacle the pro hero was referring to seemed to be a bottomless pit. Tall stone platforms were spaced out across the large canyon, but the platforms were so far apart from each other that only a select few quirks would have any hope of jumping between them. In between the platforms were long, thick ropes that moved slightly in the breeze. They weren't even close to approaching stable footing. If they take a spill, they're out. If they want to pass this test, they'll have to get creative. It's the fall. Mike announced as many glanced over the massive chasm and the tons of rocky platforms that spanned the width of the obstacle. Some were scared of how they would cross such a deep plummet. 3 people took the initiative. Taking a crouching position, Sue jumped and landed on the tight rope, crawling over the fall. This is my moment, easy peasy. Karo. Leaving everyone in awe. Bubbles showed up, not too long, and bounced from pillar to pillars, having fun and showing her athletic skills. No one seemed to pay any mind to a larger individual following suit but at slower pace. Yes. Finally. This is my chance to show what I can do. My support items are going to steal the spotlight from these wannabe heroes. A pink-haired girl with thick dreadlocks snickered as she approached the edge. The young lady was decked out in support gear from head to toe. Everyone. Observe what my brilliant gadgets can do. These are my wire arrows and hover saws. You're from support. Ochako couldn't stop herself from exclaiming the obvious. Hey! Why'd you get to bring all of that stuff? Mina, who had just arrived, pointed at the decked-out girl. Hero course students get all kinds of special training. So to keep things fair and to give us a fighting chance, we can bring whatever gear we want. We just have to make it ourselves. The pinkette grinned brightly at the 2 girls. Now watch and be amazed. With that, the support course student launched a cable across the chasm to a platform. Her boots activated and lifted her off the ground with powerful, concentrated fans. I hope all the support companies are watching. With that, she launched off the edge and swung through the chasm. When she reeled herself upwards with her wire, her boots kicked up their propulsion and rocketed her into the air. In one shot the support course girl had crossed half the obstacle. I won't lose. Ochako declared as she crouched down and activated her quirk on herself. With a powerful leap forward. That's so unfair. Mina huffed as she picked a rope and started crossing too. On the opposite side of the fall, Bubbles was currently in the lead. She looked behind her to see Todoroki crackling ice skating after her, while Bakugou gaining ground, seemingly on her tail. The ash blonde was cursing as he forced his quirk to keep going. His arms were starting to hurt and his palms felt numb, as if they were asleep. The kickback of his quirk was slowly building up. DMN it. Bakugou growled, noticing the other one of Deku's fan club. Get out of my way, you show off. Die. With that, he went on the attack to knock out Bubbles with a close face explosion. The moment she landed after a bounce, Bakugou was mere feet away from setting an explosion at her. Not gonna happen, meanie. She thought to herself, about to dodge it. But fortunately and unfortunately for Bubbles, she did a backflip into the air, over Bakugou and his attack, landing on his back, and using him as leverage, propelling herself backwards by accident. When she did that, it caused her to lose her place but caused Bakugou's flight balance to be off and stumbled onto a pillar ground. He didn't stay down for long and after some choice words, continued on with blasting through the race. It seems that one of the Kayama girls has lost her lead after perfectly evading a surprise attack from Bakugou, effectively giving him the lead, may not been wise but a move done with great finesse and technique. The number of people that will make it through the first round hasn't been revealed, so no one can relax yet. Keep going, students. Mike encouraged the first years. As Bakugou and Todoroki crossed the second obstacle, they were surprised to see Buttercup land down on the ground in front of them. She set off, running to the next challenge, and before Mike could explain the obstacle, like the hothead she was, set off a mine trap that blasted her off to the side. Although she was unscathed, she was very disoriented. Whoops. That is why we wait for the announcer to speak, ladies and gentlemen. Looks like Buttercup stumbled onto the third and final obstacle of the race. You might want to watch your step, contestants, because here we have a minefield. At this, Buttercup groaned in surprise and annoyance. Minefield? Sheesh, are they freaking kidding me? She muttered. As the other contestants were trickling, they heard the warning from Mick's announcement. So each one tried to carefully move across the field, but those who were unfortunate, set off a couple of mines on their way. At that moment, Izuku came in. Buttercup also saw both her sisters coming in as well. Bubbles and Blossom wasted no time, with Bubbles sending out a sound wave onto the field, before she confidently ran, not setting any of the mines off. Blossom released her ice breath, creating a path where she could run on. Buttercup didn't want to fall behind, so she shook of the dizziness and sprinted after everyone. Todoroki and Bakugou saw the girls catching up and kicked in their own speed. Buttercup took this opportunity to fly, leaving her sisters behind and catching up to the two guys. Bakugou started to release explosives, making himself fly as well, with Todoroki creating his own ice path, to skate over. I won't let you win, B. You will not pass me. They were clearing majority of the minefield, when a large explosion went off. The three looked back to witness something that surprised them. Up in the air was Izuku, riding on a piece of the robot as he flew over the three. Midoriya. Todoroki acknowledged him. DKU. Bakugou growled. Izuku. Buttercup smirked. Izuku was just about to lose speed, landing almost in between the three. With quick thinking, Midoriya holds onto the piece of armor and flips over, stepping onto Todoroki and Bakugou's backs. If I can't take back the lead, then I can't let them get ahead of me. Izuku thought, as he slams the armor piece into the ground between the two, causing an explosion and launching himself forward. NGH. Midoriya lands and continues running forward. But to his shock, Buttercup also seems to be right behind him. She turned to look at him, bring it on green bean. Smirking as she raced past by a few inches. Folks, in a great turn of events, Midoriya, who had lost speed, used the piece of armor to essentially block the other two competitors behind him. But just as he was gaining the lead, Buttercup Kayama caught up to him and they seemed to be in a foot race, where said girl is passing him. Mike exclaimed, his voice filled with excitement at the turn. Bakugou and Todoroki escaped the smoke and were running pissed. While those two were trying to catch up to Izuku. Izuku was trying to catch up to Buttercup as he could see a very wide distance between them. No. I can't lose. Not after the training, I will show them who I am. At that moment, his entire body was covered in electricity as he activated his quirk. Buttercup, even being a good distance away, could still hear the all too familiar sound coming from her back. Alright, bring it. One for all. 7% full cowl. Mentally activating his quirk, his speed picked up and in a split second, surpassing his normal speed and that of Buttercup. But she wouldn't give up that easily, especially if the competition is getting good. Izuku couldn't dare think of losing, not now. Knowing that, he did something stupid. 10% one for all. Finally rocketing past Buttercup, who for a split second didn't react, but she didn't back down. They were both neck and neck, until they both entered the stadium. As they crossed the line, they both skidded to a stop. Panting from the exertion, Izuku unclenched his fist. His heart was beating rapidly, like it was about to burst. Tiredness settled into his body. Trying his hardest to steady his breathing as sweat fell down his face, basically drenching it. There was just silence in the air. He then opened his eyes. Around him, Izuku could see people in the stand staring at him in shock. Even some of the pro heroes looked like they were thrown for a loop. For the first time at the sports festival, the stadium was dead silent. But that was soon broken by Present Mike, as he announced something that made both Izuku and Buttercup do a double take. And our winner of the obstacle race is Buttercup Kayama. What took you slugs so long? A smug-looking Buttercup was standing next to her unamused-looking sisters. You try evading hordes of competitive students, while they are doing freaky stuff to slow you down. Then we can talk. Bubbles replied, defensive at the moment. Oh please, it couldn't be that bad. Rolling her eyes at her explanation. Oh, just because you won the race. Suddenly we are all high and mighty, huh? Blossom cocked an eyebrow at the raven-haired girl. Jealousy is not a good look on you, sis. Shrugging off her sister's glare. A small argument broke out, 2 against 1, siding about one particular girl's ego. Izuku was busy staring at the girl who bested him on the race. He so wanted to win the first event, but inside he knows that it's not over yet. Yeah. I came to win and prove myself. He was brought out from his thoughts, when a familiar face came over. Deku. Uraraka came over to him, panting and out of breath. Hey, I am glad you got second position. It was awesome that you finally got a handle of your powers like that. Through the fatigue she felt, gave him a tired smile. Izuku could not help but reciprocate. Oh, thanks Uraraka. Rubbing the back of his head. Honestly, I just wish I had put in more work and maybe I would have gotten first place. He said. Well Deku, it's fine. All that matters is that we can face the next event together and gladly win. Her eyes shone a new rise of determination. Right. Once the last of the students crossed the finish line of the obstacle race, it was revealed that only the top 42 students would go on to the second round. Looking around at the ones that had made the cut revealed the general studies guy with purple hair that had declared war on Class 1A and the pinkette from the support course. To Bubbles' delight, the girl who also made her own declaration of war was cut off as well. Midnight came out to give their long-awaited announcement. Now people. As we have come out of our first event of the festival, we're also coming across our first rankings. As you can see, there's a leaderboard of where you placed in terms of race's outcome. But if you can't seem to find your place on the board, that means you have placed below 42nd place, and are now eliminated. Which means that you are prevented from moving on to the next event. Now, let's discover the second round event. Midnight cracked her WHP as the wheel on the display began to spin rapidly. Everyone watched on as the wheel spun. The sudden stop revealed the event and everybody was quick to read it. Capture the flag. Capture the flag. I'm not so sure my quirk is going to be good for this. Kaminari looked a little worried. Since it's not an individual event, how is it going to work? Tsuyu questioned curiously, unknowingly voicing the thoughts of several others. Allow me to explain, it has quite the twist. Firstly, this next challenge involves teams, and with the help of the screen above me, it will display and place each of you into teams at random, which means, you won't get to choose who you will partner up with. With that, the teams were placed on the screen. Everyone looked over the screen and some realized that certain members of each class were mixed together. Well, this sucks. Buttercup deadpanned at seeing the list. No one she spoke to was on her team. They might be doing this as a way for us to learn to work with heroes we might not know well in the future. Karo. Sue deduced at that, making others understand now. The game will take place in the forest, located on school grounds, but don't worry, it's not a big area, just enough to be covered by trees and greenery. There will be cameras surveying from the skies, capturing all the action, displaying it on the screen for all the teachers and people to see. Each team will be making a sort of home base that will house your flags. Aim of the game is just the same as the standard match of capture the flag. The main difference being that based on the results of the first game, each person will be assigned a point value. Those points will be added together to determine the value of a team's flag. And at the end of the competition, we are to have at least 6 teams, with 16 remaining contestants. Wait. There are at least about 4 people in each team. And if you want 16 contestants from the 6 teams, how are we supposed to run down the numbers from 24 to 16? Bubbles inquired, speaking out what everyone was thinking. That's the twist, my dear. Out of the 11 teams on the board, I did say that we are to have 6 left with the most points, and out of those, 16 contestants will go ahead. But, there will be further eliminations according to the position of the said teams. Everyone gasped at that twist. Basically, the top 2 teams with the highest points, will get to move on without losing an individual. The next 2 will lose at least 1 teammate, and the last 2 teams will lose 3. Everyone gasped and worried about the whole situation. Wait, so how do the 4 last teams' individuals get eliminated? Mina asks, worried. That's for us to decide and you all to keep an eye out. Midnight remarks all slyly. What would happen if the team lost their flags? Does it mean they're out automatically? Tokoyami inquired. Not so, my student. If you can accumulate enough points, even when you seem to have lost your flag, then you're good, as long as those points are enough to guarantee your spot in the next round. Midnight answered. Oh, I see. We are meant to accumulate enough points, just like we did in the entrance exam. Momo nodded. Yes, you're completely correct. The points assigned start at 5 for the student in 42nd place, and then go up by 5 from there. That means the 41st place is 10 points and 40th place is 15 points. That means that Buttercup has 210 points. Seeing as she placed first in the obstacle race. Blossom deduced, standing next to her sisters. Not quite, Blossom. You see, there is one exception to this rule. The point value assigned to first place is 10 million. Midnight gave them a sadistic smirk while pointing her WHP at Buttercup. The girls suddenly felt all eyes turn to Buttercup and focus intently. In their mind's eye everyone had turned into shadow-like silhouettes with bright red eyes. Buttercup felt a momentary tinge of nervousness at being the target of literally everyone else in the second round. She never would have figured that there would be some kind of penalty for her success in the obstacle race. Guess her ego came back to bite her in the ass sooner than expected. That means as long as you have the 10 million point flag, you automatically win. Someone said just loud enough for everyone to hear. Girls didn't recognize the male voice, so it must have been one of the members of Class B. That's right. It's survival of the fittest, where even those at the bottom can overthrow the ones at the top. Now, you have 15 minutes to find your teammates and make a plan. Before time is up, head on over to one of the hero teachers on either side of the exit, to show you where the field will be. Midnight declared with a wide grin. OCRP. Buttercup muttered under her breath. As she turns to look at her sisters now, she sweat drops at their faces. Each one has an "I am going to get you" flag face that makes Buttercup a little more nervous. She understood that this was a game and she can proudly say that she can be way too competitive, but she did not like the chances of everyone including her sisters gunning for her. "All the best, Buttercup," Blossom said with a cunning smirk. "Yeah. This will be so much fun." That innocent tone of Bubbles made her shiver a bit. With that, the blue and pink girls left, leaving Buttercup to the mercy of her new teammates, who some did not look too pleased to be in her group. "Right, so this is our team. Okay, we just need to dash." She was cut off by Momo. "I think the best course of action would be to create a fortified barrier around our flag, ensuring a proper defense, while we all provide an equal standard offense," Momo explained. Yeah," Buttercup blinked in surprise. "Well, I say that we all dash. I say we just get on the field and try to win. Honestly, I can't believe I am on a team with all you Class A losers." Juzo groaned the last part out, but it was abundantly clear that he was not happy being with any of them. While the other was hard to read, but she could not help the single thought going through head at the moment. "Yup. I'm doomed." Over to the other side of the stadium, Blossom could see the three people that would be on her team. The first two she recognized as Izuku and Uraraka, and the last girl with pink hair must have been from the support class mentioned on the board. She walked over, overhearing a conversation about babies. That nearly makes her stumble at those words. "Yes, with my babies, we will surely win the whole round," pink-haired girl said, while showing a chest of her inventions. Blossom took a sigh of relief. Oh, she meant her inventions, that's good to hear. When Izuku comes down from his discussion session about the jetpack the girl had, looking similar to a certain hero, he spots Blossom coming their way. "Oh, hey Blossom." He kindly waved over her. Blossom gave a small smile, as she arrived. "So, this is our team, eh?" she politely asked, not wanting to sound disappointed. "Yeah. It's not much, but I hope we can find a way to win this," Izuku nervously remarked. Blossom nodded. "I see. Well, if this is the team, then we have to form a plan of acquiring points and defense," she commented. "First, to start off, my powers, as you heard from Present Mike, is called Chemical X, like my sister's quirk's name." "Oh yeah, your powers deals with more on psychokinetics, right?" Izuku asked, for which I nodded, yes, more or less. Trying not to share. "Well, as you have seen, my quirk allows me to enhance my speed, so H was cut off by a confused Uraraka. "Wait, Deku, I thought your quirk was a strength enhancement type, how come you were able to move so fast back there?" she questioned. Izuku looked a bit flustered at the question. "Well, you see, it also amplifies some of my other physical abilities and such," giving the best answer he could. But Uraraka was not letting up. "I see, but what about Dash?" She was then cut off by Blossom. "The questions seem all fun and dandy, but can we go back to the task at hand and deal with this later?" she said, not wanting to waste any more time, and seeing as the boy was not feeling like explaining his quirk any further, which she could respect. She looked a bit miffed, but went on. "Okay, right. My quirk is called Zero Gravity and allows me to nullify gravity on anyone or anything I touch," Uraraka commented. "Quite interesting. My quirk's name is Zoom. It allows me to see things up to 5 kilometers away or teeny tiny things while I build my babies. Useful, right?" She grinned as she gave a brief rundown of her quirk to her teammates. Blossom thought that would be very useful in the plan she was coming up with. If they all play their parts right, they would surely win this round. "Okay, handsome, is it?" The girl eagerly nodded. "I want to know what sort of babies you have and whether or not some can help with the plan." That got the inventor to squeal and give a rundown on some of the support gears that she was able to bring into the competition. On the other side of the competition, more plotting was being done to reach their goals. "Okay, everyone. This is our team and seeing the rules, we will have to get the top spot. That being said, we must obtain those million points at all means. Shoto said, determination in his voice. For which everyone agreed wholeheartedly. Beg my interruption, Todoroki. But may I ask if you have a plan to obtain them? I hate to admit it, but it might not be an easy feat to acquire said points, especially with her having it. Ida remarked, knowing full well who he is mentioning. He nodded. Yes, I do. But it will need us to be very quick. That's where you come in, Ida. He commented, for which the glasses-wearing boy nodded. All right, everybody. We have a few minutes left. Please go over to the exits, and follow the assigned teacher to the fields. Now, let's get this game of capture the flag started. Midnight announced. Everyone went their respected ways. Hey, come on, wake up, Eraser. The second round is about to start. Present Mike shook the dozing Aizawa awake. It's now time for the capture the flag battle to begin. We have all of the teams displayed on the monitor. He exclaimed to WHP the crowd up. There are some interesting teams out there. Aizawa commented as he took a few seconds to look at the teams. Not much to go about, but he was sure it would be interesting. Now, raise those battle cries. It's time for the bloody battle. Present Mike declared, and the crowd roared in excitement. You're exaggerating. I doubt that there will be much bloodshed. Aizawa gave a side glance at his old friend. Mike ignored him entirely as he continued to fan the flames of the cheering crowd's excitement. All right. Every team is ready to begin. I'm not going to ask if you're ready or not. Present Mike yelled loudly, stirring up the audience as they eagerly anticipated the beginning of the sports festival's second round. Now, let's go. The countdown to the brutal bloody showdown begins. You're exaggerating again, Aizawa drawled as the countdown began. 3. Mike began the countdown. 2. Midnight called out. 1. The entire stadium roared. Begin. Midnight yelled as she snapped her WHP with a loud crack. UA Forest. On the monitor, the cameras caught something big. A massive wall of ice sprung up around Todoroki's team. The two-tone teen was apparently going on the defensive to protect his team's flag first. He'd effectively made an icy fortress right off the bat. But it does make it more clear to everyone on their location. A bit further away and one could see Siro, a part of Team Bakugou, rapidly setting up a huge net of his tape around their flag. In short order, the flag was behind layers and layers of the strong adhesive tape. Aside from trying to burn through it all, or slicing it if a person had a suitable quirk, there wasn't much way to get to the flag now. There seems to also be mushrooms sprung out and covering their fortified base now. Alright guys, you understand the plan, right? Blossom asked her teammates. Yeah. They all said in unison. Okay, let's go. She said. The plan was as so. Izuku and Uraraka, with the help of Uraraka's quirk, Mei's hover boots and jet pack, will take to the sky and try to locate and obtain as many flags as they can get. They will be aided by Mei's capture weapons to better immobilize any of the targets, while Mei will assist Blossom in defending against all the other at their designated spot. As the two left to accomplish their part of the mission, a certain sound was made. Look over there. The pink-haired gestured. It seems an ice fortress erupted in a far enough distance. Blossom could only deduce it was Todoroki who made that as his base. She was certain that him and his team would rather ambush Buttercup than come after her team's flag. Probably for the best I didn't get those million points. Having a big target on your back is never good. We have company on its way. Just then she was brought back out of her thoughts by an alarmed Katsum. With Mei's quirk, she could see quite a far distance, which was good for Blossom as it helped with her plan. Okay, where exactly? Her question was answered when a sharp-moving object landed a few inches before her foot. I would say, here already. Her nonchalant attitude made Blossom groan for a second before facing her opponents. There was a boy with a braided ponytail that she recognized from the obstacle race. His power seemed to be forming green scales on his arms and shooting them like bullets. And a girl with dark moss green hair. Blossom doesn't know her powers but nevertheless is still vigilante. The boy transforms, covering both his arms with the green scales, aiming for the flag. He lets out a number of blasts. Before Blossom could think to redirect the shots, May threw a disc in the direction it was heading and within a second, a foamy mount appeared and took the force of the shot. One of my babies. A compact foam disc, used to absorb certain attacks, such as bullets and some blunt attacks. The girl practically squealed as she gave a brief rundown of it. Blossom would have asked more questions if she wasn't dodging flying human parts left and right. Why you dodging? I just want to get close to you. The girl whined in a mocking tone. Blossom was not giving an inch with any of her parts. But a thought went through her head and took a moment to realize her flag was being whisked away by one of her floating appendage at a fast speed. Gotcha. She smirked to herself. Blossom was not having any of it. Raising a hand up, her pink aura covered the appendage before it could get back to her. The girl tried but it was basically a game of tag of war, where she was losing by a hand. Blossom was able to retract the team's flags, much to the others' dismay. But just then. Look out! May cried out, as the boy she was versing with, went on to attack Blossom. But before he could do anything, she fully enveloped the other girl with her pink aura and launched her with enough force to slam the guy back on his butt. May, now. Taking the opportunity, the pink-haired girl with a wide smile, used her capture weapon, releasing a net that covered the fallen duo. Now bound and struggling to break free from the otherwise strong net. Yay! My babies will surely be noticed by now. She exclaimed with joy at the prospects of her inventions being used and seen by the present support companies. Glad to hear it. Blossom said, happy for her. She hoped that the others were working well according to plan. Sadly, the air team consisting of Izuku and Uraraka were not faring well on their own. The plan was to be able to use the skies and snatch some flags from the other teams, but they only managed to not get attacked out of the sky by other people's quirks. Team Kendo had been an immense surprise for the zero-gravity user and the green-haired boy. Kendo's quirk had almost smacked them out of the air. The silver-haired girl on another team had launched a mass of pebbles from the arena floor at them like buckshot. Izuku could not help but ponder if her telekinesis strength would be a match for Blossom's. The worst part was that Kaminari was practically standing over the flag just waiting for anyone to find a way into the fortress. In an enclosed space like that, a single shot of Kaminari's quirk would render any invader incapable of continuing the match. Seeing that there was nothing to be done, we'll have to get back. Seems that we won't be able to get any flags before time is up. Ochako didn't want to throw in the towel so soon, but she had to admit that they weren't having much luck in the flag snatching department. Nevertheless they went back, but at the corner of Izuku's eye, he saw a dark moving rapidly through the trees. He had an idea who it could be but left it alone for later. With Bubbles' team, they were having a battle with some of the other contestants who wanted to steal their flag. Bubbles was doing her best to keep up the force field bubble she had on, but the attacks were still coming. Tetsu and Jirota were busy handling the individual battle. Kodo was taking to the trees like a monkey. He chose to handle his battle by evading it, as well as drawing out attention from Bubbles. Announcer's booth. On the monitors, everyone was watching with how the students were performing well. Some of the pro heroes in the stadium were discussing about certain students who caught their individual eye. Did you see that kid? Her quirk is very impressive. Wow! It seems that our first years are each trying to show their own in this battle. I can honestly say that some of them have caught our attention. Mike announced, feeling thrilled about the whole event. Naturally, in situations like these, a hero is expected to work another hero. Whether they know each other or not. This event is to teach the kids about teamwork and working together in unfavorable situations. Aizawa explained in a serious tone. Oh, you mean like what is happening in the team over there? Mike said, gathering everyone's attention to a team facing their own situation. Give me that flag, Kayama. Shooting a trail of ice spikes at the raven-haired girl. Not happening, Candy Cane. She declared with a blast of her plasma beams that broke the ice. Buttercup managed to dodge an explosive strike from behind, jumping a few feet away from the attacker. That 10 million point flag is mine. Bakugou proclaimed loudly as he glared fiercely at Buttercup. In your dreams. Sending another form of plasma blasts at the blonde hot head, who countered it with a strong explosive blast. Buttercup took a moment to scan her environment. She saw that some of her teammates were holding their own, but not much. Momo and Juzo, as she has come to learn, are battling off Kirishima and Ibra. Tokoyami, using Dark Shadow, guarding the reinforced structure housing the team's flag, was also trying to guard against Tenya and his speed. Buttercup could remember that upon working with her team, she worried for nothing, almost nothing, about her teammates not working with her. Momo and Tokoyami were cool to work with, but the other had his reservations about her and quite honestly pissed her off. They spoke about their quirks and what they could. Buttercup wanted to come up with a plan of attack, but Momo came up with an interesting idea of fortifying the team's flags away. She went on to create the material. Buttercup used her strength and heat source to put all together into a dome of some sort. Tokoyami volunteered to scout out the competition and tackle one or two things, which they all agreed. Don't get your feather peach captured. Buttercup cried out to the disappearing bird team. It was not too long before some expected company showed up, and boy was Buttercup not in the mood for the couple of jerks she would have to deal with. Bakugou launched for a full head-on attack, for which Buttercup jumped out of the way and delivered stun blast that sent the blonde sprawling across the ground. Her teammates were not having an easier time. Momo was too slow to create anything more offensive other than a bow staff in the battle against Kirishima. She also had a shield but was easily getting totaled by the redhead's hardened punches and kicks. Juzo was also having a hard time capturing Ibra in his quick sand trick, for she would use her vines to rise up and avoid his traps. Buttercup looked around. Geez, these bozos are a real pain. I have to hurry this up before time runs out. She readied in a fighting position, ready for what's next. Todoroki knew he was running out of time and needed to end this whole charade now. He looked over to Ida and Ibra, signaling them on what must come next. Tenya escaped from the battle with Tokoyami, much to his confusion. Forgive me, for the fate that will befall on you all. That was the only warning that she gave before her vines sprout out from the ground and bundled and restrained all the opposing teammates by surprise. What the F is going on? Bakugou thrashed and tried to break out. What the heck is going on? Buttercup shouted in surprise. Todoroki, who was now a good distance away, placed his right hand onto the ground. Sorry, but this game is over. He sent out a stream of growing icicle shards in the direction of where her and her teammates were. Everyone were freaking out, not able to defend in their situation, momentarily to use any of their quirks. Buttercup for a second was wide-eyed but came out of her initial shock with anger. She tore through the vines with blazing strength and blitzed towards the icicles. Once in front, wound back a flaming fist and struck a punch that shattered the ice. As if time had slowed down, ice crystals were falling down as she gave a heated stare towards her opponent, who looked smug. At which time she saw a glimpse of Ida speed through and take her flag that was broken out of the fortified cage. He ran off, leaving Buttercup outraged. What the hell? As if to add insult to injury, the timer for the game was over, concluding the match. Time's up. Midnight's voice was heard over the speakers. All teams bring your flags to me to be tallied. See, I told you that the game was over. Turning around, leaving the beaten team behind him. Break room. The competition came to a halt and every one of the first-year students made it back to the stadium in one piece, albeit with some scrapes and bruises, but all in all, fine to say the least. Midnight surprised. Everyone with the twist of elimination being amongst team members to decide. Some of the students looked pleased what they had done, but others were salty at the outcome, knowing they would not place in the top teams. They were given time to rest and heal before the ceremonies would begin. That gave the girls ample time to regroup and talk about their experience, whether good or not so good. I am going to kill that candy cane bstrd. Buttercup yelled like a mad woman in the room that her and her sisters were currently residing in. They too heard about the fake out that Todoroki did, and although Blossom could appreciate the tactic, the outcome could have been dire if Buttercup had not reacted in time. Yet to say that she was upset would be an understatement. Her body emulated her green aura, barely able to hold her anger in check. Not a good sign. Bubbles spoke up. Buttercup, please relax. It was just a game, and besides, you did all you could do. Trying to calm the fire that was inevitably trying to come out. The words fell on deaf ears as the raven-haired girl's eyes were glowing bright and dangerous. Blossom had enough and went over to cool off her sister. Taking a deep breath, she trapped her sister in an ice block, but not more than a minute had passed before the said girl shattered through it, steam coming out. What's the big idea, Red? Buttercup exclaimed, still looked angry but not so much as before. Blossom unfazed and spoke, you seem to have calmed down now. Great. Now you can simmer your powers before you blow a gasket, i.e. the whole stadium. She crossed her arms, raising an eyebrow as if to punctuate her point. Buttercup wanted to tell off her sister, team leader, but knew she made a point. Her anger simmered but still held her scowl and crossed her own arms in annoyance. Yeah, whatever. Averting her eyes to the side, making her annoyance clear. If nothing else, that seemed to reassure the two sisters as well. She knew she was still angry, but that was better than full-blown furious. Now, use your words. She didn't mean to have a mocking tone, but wanted to lighten the mood. She rolled her eyes. Fine. She exhaled. I am just mad at that smug guy beating me, that's all. Buttercup, we know you could have taken him, but we also understood that he tricked you with that stunt. You had to save your teammates. Bubbles said. Still BS. Buttercup muttered. Yes, we understand, but what can we do? At least you had some points in the end. Blossom pointed out. Yeah, like how did you guys pull it off? Bubbles asked, awfully curious as well. Well, after I managed to free the others, we were obviously upset that we lost, but Tokoyami dash. You mean the one with the adorable black bird thing from his body? Bubbles cooed. Bubbles. Blossom yelled, followed by an embarrassed sorry from the blonde girl. Please continue, Buttercup. Yeah, like I was saying, the guy surprised us when he pulled out a few flags from his pocket. Apparently, his scouting was his way of securing more points in the unlikely chance of us losing ours. Came true in the end. Buttercup groaned that bit of information. The girls looked at each other and were impressed at the sneaky feat, glad they were not either of the ones he was targeting. That's great to hear anyway. Bubbles cheerfully said. Yeah, it is, if you are not at the bottom of the barrel. Buttercup exclaimed. You don't know that. Blossom commented. Pretty obvious to me. Rolling her eyes. Besides, even if my team made it on the top 6, how will one us decide to be picked? That was a good question. They knew about the twist, but were they going to be properly placed? The door opened at that point. Hey guys, it's time for the announcements to begin, come on. The girls wasted no time and followed. Sports Stadium. Welcome back everyone from the short recess. That's the end of the second round in our Capture the Flag battle. Mike declared as the crowd cheered loudly. Everyone had enjoyed the dynamic and surprising second round of the sports festival. Now we'll take a look at the top 6 teams right away. These will be the teams where some of their members will participate in the third round. The giant screens around the stadium lit up, displaying the rankings of the various teams. Everyone glanced up and some were relieved, others angry at their placements while others were shocked. Team A, shototodoroki, Tenya Ida, Denki Kaminari, Ibara Shiozaki first. Team B, Izukumidoriya, Blossom K, Mei Katsum, Ochiko Uraraka second. Team C, Bakugou Katsuki, Eijiro Kirishima, Hanta Siro, Kinoko Komori third. Team D, Bubbles K, Koji Koda, Tetsu, Jirota Shishida fourth. Team E, Buttercup K, Momo Yayorozu, Juzo Hananuki, Fumikage Tokoyami fifth. Team E, Hitoshi Shinso, Narenjiki Shoda, Pony Tsunatori, Yuga Aoyama sixth. Todoroki nodded at his team's placement. He knew his method was a bit much, but this was a competition, where only the strong could win. You did great, Ida. Kaminari praised his teammate. You even bumped us up to third place. Thank you, Kaminari, but I did follow the role I was assigned to, that is to capture that flag. It was just my duty to our team leader. Ida plainly spoke of his own actions while Kaminari and Siro's sweat dropped at that. Hey, second place isn't anything to scoff at, right? Izuku nervously smiled at their placement. Yeah, you're right, no reason to complain. Blossom agreed with a nod as she smiled at her teammates. We did everything we could and we prevailed. At least I get to show off more of my appealing babies. Mei exclaimed happily as she bounced so close to the redhead, much to her growing annoyance. DMN it, Bakugou raged under his breath at placing behind to Izuku of all people. Small crackles of his quirk were sparking off his palms in his frustration. He should have been the undisputed winner. Bubbles spoke to Koda about what happened. How come you aren't moving on? She asked, sadness present in her voice. I am not much of a fighter. I decided to vote myself out and would rather just stay on the sidelines, cheering you on. His voice was whisper, but Bubbles nevertheless still heard it. Ah, thanks though. She hugged the big lug, who blushed furiously and nervously. Buttercup wasted no time in going over to her former teammates, though she only managed to find the two of her classmates. They noticed her approaching. Okay, you two, spill. Why am I the one to move forward? I thought we would have to argue or something. Buttercup inquired, folding her arms. Quite simple, we, meaning me and Momo, wanted to thank you for saving us. He said. We decided that you would be the best fit, and although we defended as a team, it was you who saved us all in the end. Even though you could say that some of us didn't do much. Momo honestly spoke, though you could hear the sadness in her voice. Maybe it could be guilt she felt. Their answer took Buttercup back a little. I don't know what to say. Buttercup bluntly added. Tokoyami just gave a small smile. Well, I am not much for feelings, but I do wish you all the best. Tokoyami said as he left with Momo in tow, before Buttercup could say anything. Maybe these class A guys aren't total jerks. Some of them. She thought to herself, as she went back to her sisters. There you have it. Midnight called out to everyone in the stadium. These are the 16 students that will advance to the final round. With a crack of her WHP, the screens changed to a list of the competitors. Third round. Todoroki Shoto. Ibara Shiozaki. Denki Kaminari. Tenya Ida. Midoriya Izuku. Blossom K. Uraraka Ochako. Hatsum Mei. Bakugou Katsuki. Eijiro Kirishima. Bubbles K. Siro Hanta. Hitoshi Shinso. Tetsu. Jirota Shishida. Buttercup K. Third round. Now, I am sure everyone could use a break. With that being said, we'll be putting the sports festival on a 2-hour pause for lunch. When we come back, it'll be straight into the third round. See you all in a bit. Hit the restrooms, grab some food, buy some merch, all proceeds go to the school. Mike informed the public as the crowd began to stand up from their seats to take advantage of the break. Don't pressure them to buy things. Aizawa was heard over the speakers. I'm not pressuring, it's a suggestion. Mike chuckled at his co-commentator. Whatever, Aizawa replied dully just before the speakers clicked off. Hey, let's go grab some food, Shota. Mike grinned at the thought of food. Go get it yourself, Hisashi. I'm taking a nap. Aizawa replied as he climbed into his sleeping bag and turned to face the wall. What? Come on, how many naps do you need? Mike questioned his friend while nudging him with his boot. More than I get. Aizawa responded as he buried himself deeper into his yellow sleeping bag. Well, I don't want to eat by myself, so you're coming too. Hisashi declared as he grabbed the top of the sleeping bag and dragged it along behind him. Ugh, Aizawa groaned in dismay at his pushy, extrovert friend. As everyone was given a lunch PRD before the third and final event could take place, the students ran to the food vendors and cafeteria to enjoy a much-needed break. The PPGs were also heading over to grab a bite to eat when Bubbles said that she's going to take a little stroll around the grounds for a bit, wanting to check out more of the awesome stands and stuff that they had around. Her other sisters were not against it but told her not to go overboard with her spending. Well, Blossom did. Alright Bubs, but I warn you. I might eat your food if you don't make it back in time. Buttercup jokingly yelled, as she left off in a hurry, leaving an unamused Blossom behind. Don't worry, I will keep your food safe. Be safe and hurry back. She said with a small smile as she left too. Bubbles only gave her own beaming smile at them as she left to do her own tour of the place. Honestly, Bubbles was not too interested in the amazing merch and stuff to buy. Okay, she kinda was, but it was more of her needing to get some fresh air and rest from the craziness of the day. Don't get her wrong, it was a fun and all, but it was still sad that she didn't get to fight with her sisters. She understood that even though they are a team at the end of the day, it was still not fun, working with people that she didn't know, minus Kota that is. Kind of childish to always rely on them, huh? She shook her head and put that thought aside and focused on just the walk she was on, taking in the sights, the smell of the fresh air and the sounds and feeling of. Strange something is not right. With that, Bubbles picks some strange feeling. She looks around and darts towards the corners of the stadium exit. When she could pick up something akin to a conversation, she knew it was none of her business but something compelled her to stay put. What's up, Todoroki? She heard Izuku's voice, seeming nervous. Todoroki seemed to be completely unreadable. Ever since this competition started, I have noticed a certain change in your abilities. Especially when you raced one of those Kayama girls. You seem to have a better handle on your powers, even if it is a little. Todoroki deduced. Yeah, just some extra training, you know. Izuku playfully remarked, feeling a slow of nerves building up. Todoroki slightly huffed, yeah, I bet. Must be with those 3 girls you hang around with. That statement made Bubbles' focus more intense, and Izuku taken aback a little. I have also noticed that you all seem so close. He continued. That made Izuku and Bubbles slightly more curious. Midoriya, are you dating those 3 girls? He finally inquired. That made Izuku do a spit take and splutter over the question. No, nothing like that. We are just good friends. Bubbles was trying desperately to not react. Her emotions ranged from dumbfounded to confusion to laughter. I see, then it leads up to my second question. Are you All Might's secret love children? Whatever semblance of fear Izuku had at that moment was replaced with stunned silence. Weird thing to ask someone. But I am curious as why he asked. Bubbles mused over the question as well. Izuku could only think of that little conversation that Todoroki and he had in the locker room that could possibly suggest why he could possibly think this. Well, are you? That question brought Izuku out of his stunned thoughtful silence. No, it's nothing like that, and even if it was like that, I guess I couldn't tell you, so you might not believe me in the end. But honestly, there is nothing like that at all. Trying to reassure the bicolor-haired boy, but tripping over his words along the way. Izuku. Bubbles sighed under her breath at the crazy hole he was unnecessarily digging for the 4 of them. Interesting choice of words, it would imply that there is something else going on. But as for those three, it seems not so sure. Anyway, it doesn't matter, for now. Izuku felt dumb for not choosing his words carefully. Then why did you ask? He questioned. It has been my destiny since BRTH. Ever since I became the son of the number 2 pro hero. Bubbles' eyebrows furrowed. She did not do as much research on the heroes in this world as Blossom, but she did know who he was talking about and her thoughts were proven right by Izuku's question. Endeavor, you mean? Izuku asked, but he knew. Todoroki paused, then nodded. Izuku stumbled back, flattening against the wall as she recalled the hero. That's right, Enji Todoroki. He whispered. He's the flame hero, who has a quirk who can control fire. Todoroki scoffed softly. Yeah. And he's a complete disappointment of a father. Both Izuku and Bubbles gasped, the latter covering her mouth, as they were taken aback by his words. Meanwhile, he looked unbothered. Your knowledge gained from online articles only tells you so much. If you knew it all, you would know that Endeavor isn't just a number 2 hero. He's a madman, hell-bent on taking the number 1 title from All Might. Bubbles' eyes softened. She could hear and feel some underlying sadness coming from the boy. This father of his does not seem so great. Todoroki's eyes glazed over slightly, as if tuning everything out. Beating him would be the closest I would get to beating All Might. His confession threw Izuku for a loop. What? Beating All Might? Why would you want to do that? He asked, dropping his guard entirely. Todoroki seemed hesitant as he closed his eyes. Because it's my destiny. The world stopped. All of the loud noises of the festival seemed to drift away, leaving only Todoroki's voice and hers. It was like with only his words, Todoroki froze the very atmosphere. Including Izuku, as his BLD ran cold. Your destiny? Have you ever heard of quirk marriage? Izuku's stunned silence was key that he knew. Quirk marriage? Bubbles mentally thought to herself. A union. Between two powerful quirks. That was how he came to be with my mother. With his money and accomplishments, he bought my mother's relatives to use her quirk. And that's how I came into this world. My quirk was the perfect balance. Fire and ice. Hot and cold. My old man is obsessed with All Might. Everything in his career, he did to rise above All Might. And if he couldn't do it himself, he would ensure someone of his kin did. He wanted to make sure that his child would be the perfect mold for the number 1 hero. With the strongest quirk, the keenest intellect, and the ability to meet high expectations. Todoroki bitterly explained. Izuku couldn't believe what he was hearing. Taking in his lineage and the potentials of his quirk, Todoroki was an unimaginably strong person. A fact that ran way deeper than he could ever comprehend. Todoroki continued on, unaware of Izuku's horror-stricken face. From my CNCPTN, I've been trained to take over the number 1 hero spot. It was the only reason why I was created, of course. My old man isolated me, you see. My family were distractions, he said. And my mother, I almost never saw her. The only memories I have of her now were her crying and this scar. Todoroki softly touched the left side of his face, where his pinkish healing scar was. How does a scar remind you of her? Todoroki closed his eyes. She gave it to me. She had called my left side, my fire, unbearable before burning me with boiling water. Bubbles quickly put a hand to her mouth, biting back another gasp. She couldn't help but feel pure terror in that moment for Todoroki. All for an event that seemed to have happened years ago. Despite that, if Todoroki noticed any horror on Izuku's face, he didn't acknowledge it. The reason I picked a fight with you. The moment I entered this festival today, my old man wanted me to do it. Use the fire he's given me to win this tournament. But I refuse. For the things he's done to my family. To my mother. He doesn't deserve the pride he'd get from me using my fire side. I will win this whole thing without the DMN thing. After he said that, Todoroki's gaze cleared and he blinked. He finally focused on Izuku, who tried his best to hide any sign of concern or worry he felt in that moment. And it was like Todoroki suddenly realized what he was here for, as his gaze took on a steely determination. Luckily I did not need to use it out, you all nearly drew it out of me. That Kayama girl I faced, is a strong opponent and her energy reminds me a lot of his, that's why I took joy in beating her in the last event, if only she would have lost. As he said those last words, his voice takes on a sudden venomous anger, startling Bubbles. Bubbles felt relieved that Buttercup did not hear that, she would have good reasons to really PND him. Todoroki took a deep breath, his shoulders dropping slightly. Even with everything else, those three are merely stepping stones to beat you in the end. I know that I will cross paths with one of those three again, but it is you I want to face and will beat. He narrowed his eyes, making it clear he was deadly serious. Izuku let his declaration hit him at once. He understood that the lives they lived are so different, aiming for the same thing but having such different childhoods. Izuku was still in his thoughts even as Todoroki was leaving, but he noticed Todoroki pause outside the doorway. I could have sworn someone was out here. Todoroki thought, shrugging, he deemed it unimportant. As I said Izuku. You're obviously connected to All Might in some way, and I will beat you to reach my goal. Izuku understood the longing to win and attain one's goal, he also understood that he wasn't going to back down so easily at his words alone. Wait. Todoroki paused at his call, keeping his back turned but glancing over his shoulder. As he did, Izuku felt his newfound, even if it was a little, confidence take rise as he spoke his mind. My motivation to win may not be as heavy as yours. But it doesn't mean that I am any less motivated to do so. I have gotten a lot of help to achieve my dreams, and I know I will still need it. He said dryly as he looked down at his hand, but it's okay, because I know I came here to win and make not just myself but also those who helped me proud. Looking at the boy in front of him with familiar determined eyes. Just like you declared war at me, I say ditto, for I won't back down. Todoroki let his declaration sink in as well. Finally he walked away. As he left the area, Izuku slowly exhaled. He knew now that Todoroki was to be his rival, one of the only things stopping him from getting to the top. And like he just told him, he was the same to him as well. Even though the conversation still ran wild in his mind, he couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching them. Up on the roof, Bubbles was peering down at the two boys, now one, as the other left, leaving Izuku to scope his surroundings, trying to locate someone. That was too close for comfort. She exhaled a heavy sigh of relief. She hid out of sight, till she knew the coast was clear and got down. Honestly, it's a good thing that no one was around or she would have gotten in trouble. Bubbles now had a sad expression, thinking back to what Todoroki said to Izuku about his father. It made her think of the professor, sure he never treated her and sisters like that but in the past, it seemed like something was off with his behavior. I better head on and find the girls. They might have an idea, well Blossom would, Buttercup might want to still PND Todoroki. With that, she went on her way. What is Shoto doing? The furious yell echoed throughout the empty hallways, not doing much to overcome the sounds of the cheers in the heart of the stadium. As the words faded, the speaker gritted his teeth, the flames lining his shoulder growing in intensity. He still wants to defy my gift, huh? He muttered to himself. He's wasting his potential. If it wasn't for his minuscule plan, he would have lost again to that girl. Overcome with rage, he punched a wall. The very structure trembled from its power, as a rumbling noise was felt even along the walls farther away from the punch's location. And among that rumbling noise, a familiar happy voice shouted. Ah! Punching walls again, old friend. Slowly, he turned, his eyes fiery. And before him, approaching down the hall with that signature grin, was the #1 hero himself. Instantly, the man straightened, pushing off the wall just as hard as his punch. Instantly, his eyes narrowed in the presence of his fated rival. The one he hated oh so much. All Might. He growled. All Might finally got close before stopping with open arms. Endeavor. It's been so long. Endeavor was still staring at All Might with undisguised contempt. He lifted his head, almost turning his nose up from him. Well, that's no way to treat an old buddy. All Might announced, a little daunted by Endeavor's behavior. We haven't spoken in what? Like, 10 years. I wanted to give you a shout-out. Perhaps we can convene over some tea dash. Before All Might could finish, Endeavor was already moving, suddenly walking past him and walking away. This took All Might for a loop. You can take that tea offer somewhere else, All Might. Good day. With his back turned, Endeavor didn't seem to notice All Might's smile disappear entirely, as the latter furrowed his brows deep in thought. Suddenly, All Might goes up to Endeavor, grabbing his arm to hold him up. Listen, Endeavor. In the grand scheme of things, Shoto really is remarkable. Even without using his fire. It doesn't matter if he hasn't gotten first place yet. He still is in the making for a great hero. After he said that, All Might grinned again. So, that proves all the more how great a teacher you can be. And from a friend to a friend, I'd like some advice on how to cultivate this promising generation of heroes. Endeavor was quiet, looking at All Might then at his hand on his arm. Finally, he pushes it away. Your attitude is as sickeningly annoying as ever. As for Shoto, there is no doubt he is skilled. I created him to be that way. And I don't care how many clones of you come out in the tournament to beat him, because he will rise above everyone. Especially you. Saying everything he intended to say, Endeavor walked away, and this time, All Might didn't stop him. Once All Might was alone in the hallway, he sighed, shaking his head. Ichem. Some things never change. Bubbles had finally made it to the lunchroom. As she entered, she saw a familiar face having 2 lunch trays with one of them having some untouched food on it. She walked over to where he was sitting and was greeted with a friendly smile, for which she reciprocated with her own gleaming smile, that seemed to make the big lug blush a bit but was unnoticed. Hi Koda. She greeted. Have you seen my sisters? They were supposed to meet me here for lunch. She asked, confusion in her voice. Koda nodded at that. They said that they had to deal with some teacher's request and Buttercup was called in by Recovery Girl afterwards. But they bought you some food before they left. I was just waiting with it. He said in his shy and quiet voice. Bubbles smiled, and understood the situation, but she needed her sisters for a meeting of sorts. Oh well, I guess I can wait and have lunch with you until they come back. Saying that, she sat down next to a welcoming Koda. What the girls got her were 4 chicken salad sandwiches and a chocolate milkshake. She felt somewhat better and was happily eating her meal in silence, until a familiar figure came over to her table. If it isn't the 1/3 of the Wonder Trio. Bubbles raised her head to see a familiar boy. He was a relatively tall boy with messy, indigo-colored hair that flares out in large tufts around his head, notably straight teeth. His eyes are usually half-closed, and he has dark eye bags underneath them. Right now, he had a sinister smirk on his face as he looked toward the blonde girl. Bubbles with a full mouth did not reply but gave a, "What did you say?" look towards the boy. He scoffed, not losing his devilish smirk. I said that you are one of the girls from the race that put on a show. Must be nice being gifted such amazing abilities that you don't deserve. Bubbles at this point was stunned at this stranger's rude comment. I guess I am the first person to tell you this, figures. You and your sister's privilege-powered lives must be all fine and dandy. But you must be the weakest among the 3 of you, that much I know. Narrowing his eyes at her. Before she could even attempt to reply to that, a gentle hand came over and covered her mouth. She was spooked for a second before looking up to see Aoyama with a serious expression on his face. I think mademoiselle doesn't want to be rude. Speak monsieur, especially as she is having her déjeuner a le moment. Aoyama said with his signature flamboyant French accent, only it contained hints of detest. Koda was standing by her as well. Shinso was initially disappointed that his plan didn't take place, but he swiftly smiled at the seed he planted from the questioning eyes the girl had. Raising both hands in defense, he turned to leave. Honestly, it's very obvious how weak you are compared to the other Wonder Girls. Maybe your perfect quirk is that compared to us unprivileged few, but it seems you're still weaker than the others. He made one last comment before he left, leaving a disheartened Bubbles, wondering what just happened. She was so distracted by the guy's words that she didn't notice the hands that were once on her mouth, had left, 2 hands resting on her shoulders now. She looked up to see one hand belonging to a now slightly miffed Koda, who had a face that asked if she was okay, and another hand that belonged to Aoyama, with a slightly more miffed look. Sorry mademoiselle, but it was well advised to not respond to his distasteful words, we. She just gave a small reassuring smile at the both of them. She remembered that the guy was another one of the students who declared war at her class weeks ago. She understood that he was just trying to bait her, but she couldn't help the thoughts going through her mind. Am I really that weak compared to my sisters? After having her lunch, Bubbles was still pondering her thoughts even with the explanation and reassurance of both Koda and Aoyama, with the latter soon after leaving, she was still second-guessing herself. Soon her sisters came back and told her of what had happened. Buttercup was called in to assist recovery girl with some minor injuries, but there were a lot of students, so it took some time. Blossom was almost roped into a ploy by Kaminari and Zero, wanting her to be part of the cheerleading group. Neither of them figured that she would call up Ms. Midnight to confirm, leaving them to face some after-school punishments in the future. Bubbles was glad that they finished, and more than glad to tell her about what she found out, but before she could, Present Mick's voice was on the speakers. And now, the time for fun festivities is finally over. He announced. All students, please gather around midnight to hear how the final round will proceed. Immediately, the students stopped what they were doing and got themselves in order, gathering in the middle of the arena. As they did, that familiar feeling of dreadful anticipation wormed its way into everyone's mind. It didn't help to relieve the mood that everyone was in. And so it begins, Blossom whispered. Well, this is gonna be fun. I've been waiting for this moment. Buttercup declared, grinning as she crossed her arms. She took a moment to glance over her other sister, to see that she had a sad-stricken expression. Yo Bubs, what's with the sour mood? Not really your look. She may have teased, but she was genuinely worried. Oh, it's nothing, honest. She lied, trying not to worry her sisters. Speaking of moments, how is the final round going to go? Do you know what we're doing? Bubbles asked, trying to divert the topic. After she spoke, another classmate surprisingly answered the question. Beats me, Kirishima speaks up. It changes every year. Next to him, Buttercup looked surprised. It changes? Man, that's confusing. Not really. Zero enters the conversation. All of the time, it usually involves a one-on-one match. Sure enough, Midnight finally speaks up to confirm Zero's words. Okay, everyone. Now I know you guys have been waiting for what the final round holds. And I'm pleased to announce that this year will be a fighting tournament. At her words, students looked happy and cheered, especially Buttercup. Fighting tournament? She shouted, her eyes filled with energetic glee. Ah yeah. Midnight winked. That's right. In just a few moments, we will be starting a tourney with the 16 last individuals. First off, we will do 8 one-on-one battles for our first round. Whoever wins their match will move up to the second round, where the CYCL repeats and our third round begins. Finally, the winners of the third round battles will enter the final round, and whoever comes out victorious will become our sports festival champion. As everyone cheered once more, Izuku slowly exhaled, the instructions sinking in. So for him to win the finals, he had to beat 3 opponents. Plus the finalist. In total, he needed to win 4 entire battles to win the festival. The feat seemed simple enough, but with everything that's been going on he knows that whatever he writes off as simple proves to be the opposite. His rivalry with Todoroki and Buttercup is proof of that. "Hey, everyone! Are you ready to rumble?" Mike called out over the speakers. The resounding roar was a clear answer. Everyone was ready for the third round to finally begin. A lot has happened today, but now it has come to this. A serious battle where you can only depend on yourself. Here, you have no teammates or comrades. It's a fan favorite. The classic one-on-one tournament. Heroes have to be able to face what comes at them, whenever it comes at them. Skill, knowledge, experience, perseverance, and sheer determination, use them all to your advantage in this round. Mike kept the excitement building as the crowd was practically rumbling now. Now, please look at the screen above to see who you guys are paired up with for the brackets. With Midnight's cue, the board switched to a drawing of the tournament bracket. The 8 battles were lined along the bottom, with 16 brackets with names grouped up in pairs. The names were as follows. Buttercup K vs Bubbles K. Todoroki vs Zero. Blossom K vs Shinso. Kirishima vs Tetsu. Ida vs Hatsum. Kaminari vs Ibra. Uraraka vs Bakugou. Izuku vs Jirota. As the names were displayed, some were hyped about their matches while others were dreading it. "I'm facing Buttercup," Bubbles thought to herself, as she was subconsciously tightening her fists. "Okay. Who is this Uraraka?" Bakugou asked himself, much to the said girl's surprise and hurt pride. Hitoshi Ha. Blossom scoped out her surroundings, trying to find the guy. He spotted him, who made contact, but not with her. Looking back, it was at Bubbles, who seemed to have a scowl on her face, looking at him, while he had a smug smile. That was odd to say the least. "Bubbles, what's that about?" Blossom whispered to Bubbles. Bubbles snapped out of her contemplation, grounded back in her own situation. Almost annoyed, she glanced at her sisters. "Nothing," she replied dismissively. Suddenly, she turned her back and started to leave with the rest of the group heading to exit the stadium floor. Meanwhile, her sisters watched her leave, somewhat unsettled. "Hey, do you think Bubbles okay? I have the feeling that something is off with her," Blossom asked Buttercup. Buttercup looked at her, and for the first time, she looked serious as her eyebrows furrowed in concentration. "Who knows? She's been having this look of second-guessing and looking sour, ever since we stepped onto the field." Blossom's expression of concern intensified. "Do you think it has anything to do with your match against her?" Blossom suggested. Buttercup shook her head, her face already shifting to her light-hearted attitude. "Nah. She's good, besides you know Bubbles, she's a pretty kick-ass fighter, well aside from me anyway." Blossom couldn't help but roll her eyes, but she also smiled at the compliment that Buttercup gave. She finally sighed as the two began to walk with the group. "I guess." But she looked really serious and somewhat in pain. Buttercup frowned, not liking that one bit. "Relax, Red. Bubbles can handle herself, and if she were in a mood, she knows she could come to us, well, mostly you as you deal with all that mushy feeling stuff. I just kick ass." Putting aside Buttercup's ego, she was right about Bubbles and she could come to us. Though she felt she needed to do some digging of her own. "Right. I'll let you get ready for your battle. Make sure not to destroy anything or kill anyone." It may have sounded like a joke, but she was dead serious. Buttercup just gave a resounding whatever, as Sheeta left to get ready. Bubbles couldn't stop herself from pacing. Something that sounded completely unlike her. She was walking back from the field and heard many people give. Faintly, she recalled her days back home, a time when she used to battle her sisters for practice or monster battles. She always remembered the intense build-up before a fight. Blossom and Buttercup were great fighters in their own right, using brains and superior skills to their advantage. Bubbles was just as good, but she only got there if she was mad or even lost it. But now, she can't really afford to go hardcore without serious consequences to unfold. But she felt that she couldn't beat her sister without doing so. First match, Buttercup vs Bubbles. Hey sports fans, are you ready? Let's get started with the first match. Mike called out to the stadium and the cheers of the crowd. For match number 1, let's start this off with a battle of sisters. In this corner we have the raven-haired striker, Buttercup Kayama. Thanks, Teach. Buttercup grinned widely at the introduction. The teen waved to the crowd as she headed for the ring. Her opponent will be the bubbly bouncing ball of 1A, Bubbles Kayama. Mike introduced as Bubbles walked towards the ring with a determined look on her face. The two girls stood across from each other a few moments later. Both stared each other down as they squared up to begin their match. The tension began to fill the stadium as the first match was about to begin. The cheers of the crowd faded into a low rumble as they waited. Are both competitors ready? Midnight questioned both students, looking between the two teams. Though she could tell something off. Oh yeah. Buttercup grinned as she readied her fists. Bring it on, princess. Bubbles remarked, narrowing her eyes at her sister, much to the surprise of Buttercup and Midnight. Begin. Midnight cracked her WHP hesitantly, and Bubbles, like lightning, quickly launched backwards, to ready her attack. Bubbles' blue aura emerged and she formed her familiar blue sound spheres by the dozen, launching them at her sister at great speed. Buttercup came out of her initial shock, replaced now with anger as she saw what was coming at her. She pressed her hands together and formed a green plasma sphere of her own, flinging it at the other's attack. Both attacks collided and cancelled each other out with a boom. That made everyone in the audience amazed at what they just saw. Whoa man! Someone in the audience exclaimed. As the dust settled, both girls glared at each other. What did you call me? Buttercup demanded to know, as she gave a ready position. Come at me and find out. Bubbles remarked, as if it was obvious. Okay, that's it. With that, Buttercup readied an energy-charged fist and leapt forward. Bubbles also leapt forward to deliver a sonic-infused kick. And as the two attacks collided, there was another collision of energy as each girl was not giving an inch to the other, until they both backed away on a stalemate. Buttercup took the opportunity to race after her sister, two fists at the ready, for which Bubbles countered with her bubble force field, taking the attack head-on. Buttercup was not letting up as she fired consecutive strikes, glaring at her sister who was inside the force field, who was taking it with a determined glare of her own. With enough strength, Bubbles pushed back the force field enough to dodge the impending attack, leaving Buttercup to miss her by an inch and slam her fist into the concrete. Dust erupted and Buttercup didn't see the solid roundhouse kick that made impact across her face, sending her sprawling once before getting back up onto her feet. Bubbles jumped towards with her own concussive punch, that Buttercup quickly blocked, delivering a plasma blast directly into Bubbles' gut, inciting a grunt, as she was knocked backwards to the ground. Buttercup flew forward, leaving a green trail behind her as she went to attack her sister, who recovered from the blast and launched up into the air. Oh no you don't! Buttercup exclaimed as she redirected her flight into a U-turn heading up to her sister. She sent blasts after blasts, trying her best to not really hurt her, but that etiquette was not reciprocated. Bubbles dodged it well, and as Buttercup was getting closer, she did a triple spin and delivered a hammer kick that Buttercup blocked with her arm crossed, resulting in her being shot down to the ground with a thud. Everyone was watching the scene with mixed expression. Some looked on in awe at the abilities of the girls, others were scared at the unbelievable feat, and there was some that were concerned about the whole battle. What are they doing? This doesn't look right. Blossom muttered to herself in worry. She knows that neither one of them were going to back down, but this was becoming a bit too intense. She also noticed some of her classmates were also sporting concerned expressions, Koda and Aoyama to be precise. Something tells her that the latter knows why her little sister is fighting with vigor. The two girls were trading punches and kicks, each one laced with their own colored aura and a lot of fury. The battlefield looked cracked, their clothes had cuts and tears. Thrown off by an attack, Bubbles crashed into the ground, rolling away a fair distance. But before she could react, Buttercup raced towards her, jumping high into the sky, and coming down with an energy-fueled punch. "Quit being such a baby." Eyes widening, Bubbles rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding the bullet punch that tremendously shook the ground. Buttercup's head snapped in her direction before lunging at her sister. Once again, Bubbles dodged and got up on her feet, raising her fists. "Make me!" she shouted with equal fervor. Buttercup glared before shouting a war cry and colliding with Bubbles. The two were now throwing punches and kicks, sparring with bicolored energy and with burning glares. The crowd was going wild around them, loud voices ringing in their ears, and yet nothing distracted them from their duel. Each of them tanked their super-powered hits all while trying to weaken the other, locked in a fearsome boxing match. Buttercup funnily had enough and wanted to talk. She then grabbed onto her sister's arm and did a shoulder throw, sending her across the field, but not enough to get her out, simply landing on her back. "Okay, don't get me wrong, I love a good tussle. But what is your problem, Bubbles?" she yelled. "You're acting crazy and you called me princess." "No one calls me princess," Buttercup yelled at her sister. Bubbles stood to her feet and sent a glare at her sister. "You want to know why I am fighting like this? Fine. People think I am weak compared to you and Blossom, and I wanted to show everyone that I am just as strong as the rest of the Wonder Trio are," she exclaimed. Buttercup was shocked at that. "Wonder Trio, what kind of name is that? And, of course you're a strong, Bubbles, whose fool's idea did that come from?" she demanded to know, anger rising high. She shook her head. "No, it doesn't matter." "Yes it does." "No. What matters is that I win and I will." Saying that, Bubbles took a deep breath and was about to let out a sonic scream. Buttercup, having had enough, launched at her sister, eyes glowing green as she delivered a glow of energy. As Bubbles was about to let loose, the sound didn't make it in time as Buttercup already collided with her sister. A cloud of smoke rose into the air, covering the field, leaving everyone waited in bated breath at what had happened. As the dust settled, everyone saw that the two girls were still standing. What was more shocking was that Bubbles' foot was out of bounds and Buttercup had her arms around the girl's neck, in what looked to be a hug. "Okay, Bubbles. We are going to talk and we will all listen to each other, okay?" Buttercup whispered into her ear, in an uncharacteristically soft but firm tone. Bubbles only nodded her head, which hanged on her sister's shoulders. "Good." Giving her a good squeeze for good measure. Midnight nodded at that display before making her ruling. Buttercup Kayama wins the match on account of Bubbles Kayama's foot out of bounds. Everyone broke out in cheers and applause as the two sisters made it out of the ring and toward the exit. Oh my stars! Did you see that, folks? Because I hope you were not just tuning in finally watched the games, cause that was an awesome way to start a match. Mike exclaimed as he was equal parts excited and terrified at what these girls could do. Shockingly, Aizawa was too stunned to make a comment. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for part 6. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author ChiWriters on FANFICTIONnet. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye.